Hello everybody. Today we're going to talk about solving inequalities with variables on each side. So if you remember from the previous lessons, solving inequalities is just like solving equations except for the last two steps. So if you remember our steps from solving equations, the very first thing you look to do is distribute. So you want to distribute if you have parentheses, and you only distribute the term on the outside to every term on the inside of the parentheses. Your second step is to combine like terms on each side. Now, combining like terms is the operation of addition. So you look on each side of the inequality and see if there's any like terms you could add together. And your third step, now the problems today will mostly just have the third step in them. They won't have steps 1 and 2. But it's important to mention those steps because in the future, you could have steps 1 and 2 before step 3. But the third step for any inequality would always be get your variable terms on the same side. So you want to get your variable terms on the same side. The reason you want to get your variable terms on the same side is so you can combine them into one term, and then you could get that variable by itself eventually, okay? So you want to get your variable terms on the same side, and you're going to use addition or subtraction to get your variable terms on the same side. Okay? Now, steps 4 and 5, we'll talk about those later, but we're used to those. Those are the steps for two-step inequalities. So at that point, once you get past step 3, you're just going to solve the two-step inequality. So we're building on previous lessons, and every lesson we do, it incorporates the previous lessons, which is excellent. So let's say we have the inequality 4x minus 3, which is greater than negative 6x minus 23. So the first thing we want to do here is look to distribute or combine. But remember, for today's lesson, we won't have either of those steps, but it's worth mentioning. So you always want to look to distribute if you have parentheses. Then we look to combine stuff, but there's no like terms on either side. So we can't combine anything. So now we got to look to get our variable terms on the same side. So we have this 4x and then negative 6x. It's usually best to move the smaller term to the other side. So you could, what you could do, or and I shouldn't say should do, but if we move the 6x, what it's going to do is it's going to make this positive here. Now, it's not guaranteed to be positive, but a lot of times when you move the smaller term, you'll get a positive answer. And that's usually a little bit easier because you don't have to worry about flipping the sign. But if you wanted to, you could also subtract 4x from both sides. So we could do this problem by subtracting 4x from both sides. And as long as we did our math work correctly, we'd still get the same exact answer. So just so you're aware, and maybe we actually will do that in a second, we could have subtracted 4x if we wanted to. So now we have this two-step inequality. 10x minus 3 is greater than negative 23. So we want to isolate the 10x by adding 3 to both sides. 10x is going to be greater than negative 20. Subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number for that answer. Last step, divide by 10. X is greater than negative 2. We've got to make sure we graph our answer. So that's going to be a open circle negative 2, and we want to shade numbers bigger than it, so shade to the right. Now let's do that same exact problem, but by moving the 4x first. So again, here's the same exact problem. We're going to subtract 4x from both sides. And it's always a good idea, that I mentioned in the previous one, to draw a line through that inequality symbol, because that separates your two sides and helps you stay organized. So on the left-hand side, we have negative 3. That's going to be greater than, these will combine to be negative 10x minus 23. And now we have to isolate the negative 10x, so we're going to add 23 to both sides. Negative 3 plus 23 is positive 20. Bring down your negative 10x. Last step is going to be to divide by negative 10. So we go left to right with our math work. We have negative 2, but we do have to flip the sign because we divided by a negative. And now we should rewrite that as x is greater than negative 2. And if you remember, that's the same exact answer we got before. So it doesn't matter which variable term you move, but you just have to move one of them to get it to the other side. but it is usually easiest if you move the smaller one. Okay, let's do another example. So here we have negative x plus 6 is less than or equal to 3x minus 10. If you feel like the pace is too fast, pause the video. Give yourself a chance to copy that down. So draw a line through the inequality sign. We don't have any parentheses or like terms on either side. So now we have to get our variable terms on the same side. So the smaller one is actually that negative x. So I'm going to add that to both sides. But please keep in mind, if you wanted to, you could have subtracted 3x from both sides. So we have 6 is going to be less than or equal to 4x minus 10. And now we have to get the 4x by itself. It's a two-step inequality. Add 10 to both sides. Make sure you always write out all your work. Last step is to divide by 4. So we get 4 is less than or equal to x. And to help us graph that effectively, we should rewrite it. X is greater than or equal to 4. Notice when we rewrite, we're still saying x is the bigger thing. So we're just rewriting it to help us graph that. So that's going to be a closed circle on 4, shade to the right. Okay, and again, if you decide to subtract 3x from both sides and did all your math work correctly, you still would have got the same final answer. Let's look at one more example, and then I'm going to have you try one on your own. So here we have negative 2x, excuse me. Negative 2x is greater than 3x minus 25. So let's draw a line through the inequality sign to separate our two sides. And now there's no parentheses or like terms on either side. So we have to get our variable terms on the same side. Now, this particular problem, there's going to be an easier way to do it than if we did it the other way. So what I mean by that is, if I decide to add 2x to both sides, what happens is everything's on the same side. So what I actually want to do here is, see here, there's only one term on this side, the negative 2x. So I actually want to get my variable terms on this side right here. So therefore, I do want to subtract 3x. That's going to be the least amount of steps, because when you're solving an equation or an inequality, you want your variable term on one side and your constant on the other side. So here we get negative 5x is greater than negative 25. And now we divide both sides by negative 5. So we have x. We do have to flip the sign because we divided by a negative, and it's positive 5. For our graph, go to 5. That's going to be an open circle, and we shade to the left because x, numbers we want, are less than 5. All right. Remember, it is possible, even though we got all integer answers, as far as like our final inequality is concerned, I mean, there's a wide range of answers for these. There's actually an infinite number of answers, anything less than 5. But we got 5 and basically integers for this part of the answer. It is possible you could have a fraction. So if you get a fraction, double check your math work and look over it. But it is possible sometimes you'll get an answer with a fraction in it. All right, so go ahead and try this problem on your own. And I gave you even a little bit of a challenge here. I put some parentheses in it. So you do have variables on each side, but we do have actually parentheses on one side. So I would suspect you guys are going to know how to handle this, but go ahead and check it out. So pause the video, do this problem on your own, and then in a couple seconds we're going to go over the answer. But make sure you pause the video and definitely do it on your own. Okay, so hopefully you paused the video and gave that a shot. So you probably suspected that we have to distribute first for this one. So we're going to take that negative 3 and multiply it to the inside of the parentheses, every term on the inside. Negative 3x, and then negative 3 times a negative 3 is going to be a positive 9. Now it's just like all the other problems we did. So we want to get our variable terms on the same side now because we don't have any like terms on either side. So I'm going to move the smaller variable term by adding 3x to both sides, because negative 3x is smaller than 6x. So 6x plus 3x is 9x, minus 27 is less than or equal to 9. What's left on the right-hand side? And now it's a two-step inequality. Add 27 to both sides, and what's really nice, the way I decided to do it, and it's okay if you did a different way, but everything's positive right now. Divide by 9. X is less than or equal to 4. But again, if you decide to subtract 6x at this step, as long as you did your math work right, you would end up flipping the sign and things like that, the inequality sign, but you still would get the same final answer. So we'll put a closed circle on 4. I mean, what number is less than or equal to 4, so we shade to the left. So hopefully you found this video lesson helpful. Again, there's lots of resources online, tons, on solving inequalities. All you have to do is look, maybe type in solving inequalities with variables on each side in one of those credible maths websites or a Google search. But if you have any questions, check some of those out. But if you still have questions after looking at some resources, please let me know. I'd be glad to help you. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a fantastic day.